But this same kind of signals in the same frequency range, can affect human mood. The human brain operates on very low frequencies. For example, when we're thinking, actively, we're generating about 13, 14 cycles per second. When we're meditating, we're generating 8 cycles per second. And when we're asleep, the brain waves are running at about 4 cycles per second. And HAARP is capable of generating all of these frequencies. These kinds of signals can control the human brain. And if you can control these frequencies and multiples of these frequencies and various combinations, you can control all kinds of emotions. You can generate happiness, you can generate sadness, you can generate any mood you want.
We are immersed in ELF waves. And those, as far as I know, maybe they are affecting us, but but these waves are minuscule compared to those.
The issue of ELF, extremely low frequencies affecting mental states of individuals, is not new. It goes back to Yale University and the work of Jose Delgado, which is well recognized in the literature. He started first using implants in the brain. He then used radio frequency with implants, and eventually he found that energy at 1/50th of what the Earth naturally produces could, in fact, in certain frequency ranges, trigger huge mood swings.
I know the physical effect, but not the biological effect. It's a different area.
I was considered a child prodigy in electronics. My entire life has been devoted to the study of the effects of electromagnetic energies on the human mind. When I was 13 years old, I invented a device that transmits sound to the human brain using electromagnetic waves. So this is my field. I've been studying this field for over 40 years. And HAARP scares me because I know what it can do. I know that HAARP can be used to control the human mind.
I'm not sure that the people involved with HAARP are aware that humans are made up of energy, that the energy fields of Earth and humans are closely aligned.
I don't even understand what you mean by energy. Humans are made up of energy. What does that mean?
Humans are like balls of energy. We're made up of electricity and magnetic energy, just like the Earth.
Are humans made up of energy? Well, what they say, we're 90% water, but the rest of it is an electrochemical, and that's a form of energy, yes.
All living things are exquisitely sensitive to some of the lowest levels of energy. We just couldn't imagine this. And it's been the subject of hot debate. How can life be so sensitive to the tiniest amounts of energy? But because this is how we are bioregulated, by virtue of tiny energy transactions within our body and also coming from the Earth, this is indeed the case. There are many different electromagnetic projects and technologies out there that are affecting our health today.
This document from Maxwell Air Force Base lays out the use of electromagnetic weapons technologies for debilitating human beings.
Using electromagnetic warfare against human beings, you can cause disease, you can cause hysteria, or you can cause passivity for population control.
Extremely low frequencies affect us because they are the same frequencies that our brains output. And when they're in the environment around us, our brains try to entrain to them. So our brains try to mimic those signals. And if those signals are not good ones for our behavior, then we can fall apart. We can behave differently. We could get sick. We could feel very stressed and not know why.
Once in a while, when you have a power outage, most people can identify the fact that they have a release of tension. The minute the electricity goes out, they feel an inner relaxation, a tension release, and when the power goes back on, the tension returns. So this is something that most of us can feel. Everyone has a certain sensitivity to electromagnetic waves. It's just that some people are more sensitive than others.
The symptoms that I discovered in my research caused by electromagnetic frequencies are anxiety, depression, diarrhea, dizziness, extreme fatigue, headaches, lightheadedness, mood swings, nausea, nighttime increase in urination, pulse rate, a sudden increase, shortness of breath, tingling, prickling feeling of the skin, vertigo, nosebleeds, blood pressure increase, and body tremors.
You can also cause cancer. You can disrupt the genetic structure of our cells. You can cause long-term damage in terms of mutagenic damage over generations, or you can cause very short-term damage, and you can actually cause somebody to just have their cells fall apart and hemorrhage to death.
I found from people who were writing me and calling me from all over the country that they were suffering from either one or all of these same symptoms, and every single one of them lived close by to a transmitter.
You know this from Harp to Gwyn to these towers that are all over the United States now.
No coincidence that the United States began building its own mysterious array of antennas in February 1992. They are located in Gakona, Alaska. The project is called HARP.
HARP is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, originally a joint effort of the Air Force and Navy in cooperation with a number of academic institutions.
It is today the world's largest radio broadcasting station, but it's not designed to broadcast for human ears. It uses unique patented ability to focus the energy coming out of the antenna field and injects that energy into a spot at the very top of the atmosphere in a region called the ionosphere.
HARP is comprised of 180 antennas, approximately 72 feet tall, linked together to function as one giant steerable antenna. Steerable because it can aim millions of watts of ELF waves into one tiny patch of the atmosphere.
The amount of energy we're talking about here is 3.6 million watts. To give you an idea of what that is, the largest legal AM radio station in North America is 50,000 watts. HARP is 72,000 50,000 watt radio stations injecting their entire output into a spot that's about 12 miles across by about 2.5 miles deep by about 90 miles up.
This is where HARP is pointing. It's an area located roughly 300 miles from Anchorage. The U.S. military says HARP is merely being used to study the physical and electrical properties and behavior of the ionosphere for both civilian and defense purposes. But another theory has surfaced. The intense energy being beamed into the sky by HARP is actually heating up the atmosphere, causing weather changes.
HARP is being used for weather modification. The military's own record proves it. They've admitted it within their own documents, and yet they still deny it to the public.
Dr. Brooks Agnew has researched ELF wave technology for the past 30 years and is convinced HARP's effect on the ionosphere does alter the weather.
HARP couldn't affect the jet stream directly, but indirectly it could, because if you push the ionosphere out into space, then the stratosphere just under the ionosphere has to move to fill in that gap. When it moves, it could pull the jet stream with it, thus rerouting it hundreds of miles, changing the way water moves through our atmosphere.
Dr. Agnew has devised a demonstration to show how HARP could manipulate the atmosphere.
So what we've done is we've got a cloud generator up here. It's an ultrasonic nebulizer. It's going to create real water particles, just like you would find in a cloud. What we're seeing now is we're actually filling this chamber with microscopic water particles. You can see that it's almost completely filled with water vapor. It's beginning to condense a little bit on the sides, just so that you can see the detail. We've got a nice dense fog, just like you were sitting inside a cloud at 50,000 feet.
At the bottom of the cloud chamber, Dr. Agnew has constructed an ELF wave transmitter, a miniature version of HARP.
We're only using 100 watts. It's perfectly safe.
When Dr. Agnew turns on the ELF wave transmitter and begins shooting ELF waves into the simulated cloud, the cloud begins to move up to the top of the chamber, taking the moisture with it.
If you get down low enough, you can actually see a clear layer above the antenna. It is actually...
Now I'm going to stop it for one moment, and I'm going to give you a suggestion. We're going to back up. Now you saw how he is changing the clouds inside of there. It says he can move the clouds and the water inside of the clouds, the condensation. Listen again.
If you get down low enough, you can actually see a clear layer above the antenna. It is actually pushing these water particles up. And that's exactly how...
It's pushing the water particles. So let's go back when this is acting more like a beacon.
Manipulate the atmosphere.
So what we've done is we've got a cloud
that's alter the weather.
A HAARP couldn't affect the jet stream directly, but indirectly it could. Because
if you can indirectly affect the jet stream, you can't change the jet stream, but you can change what goes into the jet stream. So the goal is to push water vapor into the jet stream and send what's usually at the North Pole down to the South Pole. So when they say global warming, they're using HAARP to heat up the northern hemisphere to change the southern hemisphere, in which change will occur to the northern hemisphere as well. See, this is what they talk about, the poles changing places, but they're not telling you the poles are being forced changed. They're sending water, they're changing. They're sending the water vapor from the North Pole through
the jet stream directly, but
through the jet stream into the southern hemisphere to attempt to produce snow in the south.
Indirectly it could.
Remember, the northern hemisphere is fucked up. Fukushima, everything that Europeans have done.
Because if you push the ionosphere out into space, then the stratosphere just under the ionosphere has to move to fill in that gap.
If you dent your snow globe, then it's going to change the way it snows inside your snow globe.
It moves, it could pull the jet stream with it, thus rerouting it hundreds of miles, changing the way water moves through our atmosphere.
From northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. Hence, there are many HAARPs. The one that they're showing you being activated for this is at the North Pole, Alaska.
Dr. Agnew has devised a demonstration to show how HAARP could manipulate the atmosphere.
So what we've done is we've got a cloud generator up here. It's an ultrasonic nebulizer. It's going to create real water particles, just like you would find in a cloud. What we're seeing now is we're actually filling this chamber with microscopic water particles. You can see that it's almost completely filled with water vapor. It's beginning to condense a little bit on the sides, just so that you can see the detail. We've got a nice dense fog, just like you were sitting inside a cloud at 50,000 feet.
At the bottom of the cloud chamber, Dr. Agnew has constructed an ELF wave transmitter, a miniature version of HAARP.
We're only using 100 watts. It's perfectly safe.
When Dr. Agnew turns on the ELF wave transmitter and begins shooting ELF waves into the simulated cloud, the cloud begins to move up to the top of the chamber, taking the moisture with it.
Taking the moisture of the clouds that would produce snow out of the northern hemisphere and pushing them through the jet stream into the southern hemisphere.
If you get down low enough, you can actually see a clear layer above the antenna.
Let me ask you, is it snowing in Georgia right now? Then if it is, then lexwill's motherfucking right.
And it is actually pushing these water particles up, and that's exactly how HAARP works. What we've done,
Prince of the power of the air.
is we've not only pushed the cloud off of the HARP antenna, but as you can see, our cloud is almost completely gone inside. HARP does exactly the same thing. It ionizes the particles, pushes them out into space. HARP.
They can't go into space. He's bullshitting you. Didn't he just show you a fucking snow globe before? Where we at? We're at 418. Here we go. Good.
HARP is actually heating up the atmosphere, causing weather changes.
HARP is being used for weather modification. The military's own record proves it. They've admitted it within their own documents, and yet they still deny it to the public.
Dr. Brooks Agnew has researched ELF wave technology for the past 30 years and is convinced HARP's effect on the ionosphere does alter the weather.
HARP couldn't affect the jet stream directly, but indirectly it could, because if you push the ionosphere out into space, then the stratosphere just under the ionosphere has to move to fill in that gap.
Now, have you ever seen clouds in space? Fuck no. They're fucking contained by the ionosphere. So, when he sits there and says, oh, it pushes the clouds out of space, you know, it just pushes the ions out in space.
Same thing. It ionizes the particles, pushes them out into space.
No, the particles can't go out into space. They go out in the jet stream.
HARP is one of several ELF
And he knows if he tells you any more, they'll kill him because he can fucking build a machine.
transmitters located all over the globe.
Did you just hear that? You got transmitters located all over the globe. This isn't one that we're worried about. We don't have to worry about the one that's in Alaska. They're all over what they call the globe. They're all over the planet, right?
HARP is one of several ELF wave transmitters located all over the globe.
One of what? Is it a unison of 72,000 50-watt antennas? Or is it 72 50-watt? I think it's 72,000. It's one of many 72,500-watt antennas. So here they have 72,000. And then the next location, 72,000.
The United States owns and operates 3 of them. One in Gacona, Alaska, another in Fairbanks, Alaska, and one in Arecibo, Puerto Rico. Russia has one in Vasilursky near Nizhny Novgorod, and the European Union has one near Tromsø in Norway.
So, how many global ELF transmitters does the UN have? Let's listen again.
3 of them. One in Gacona, Alaska, another in Fairbanks, Alaska, and one in Arecibo, Puerto Rico.
Okay, wait.
Russia has one in Vasilursky.
Somebody fucking forgot how to count. Let's go back again. Okay.
Over the globe. The United States owns and operates 3 of them. One in Gacona, Alaska, another in Fairbanks, Alaska, and one in Arecibo, Puerto Rico.
Okay, did you see how he forgot the one in Anchorage? He forgot to count the one in Anchorage. Let's watch that again.
ELF wave transmitters located all over the globe. The United States owns and operates 3 of them.
Okay, so they own and operate 3. So they're not counting the one in Alaska. Okay, now watch this. Anchorage, Alaska. Uno.
One in Gacona, Alaska.
Gacona. Doce.
Another in Fairbanks, Alaska.
Fairbanks, Alaska. That's the 3 in the United States. Okay, but they say like they operate the one in Puerto Rico, right?
Transmitters located all over the globe. The United States owns and operates 3 of them. One in Gacona, Alaska, another in Fairbanks, Alaska, and one in Arecibo, Puerto Rico. Russia has one in Vasilursky.
Now, didn't he just say, and one in Puerto Rico? So that does skip over the one in Anchorage, Alaska. Now look, Anchorage? Now they're not counting that one.
In Gacona, Alaska, another in Fairbanks, Alaska, and one in Arecibo, Puerto Rico.
And one in Fairbanks. I mean, in Arabico. Right? He says 3, and those are the United States, and he doesn't count Alaska. One more time, because I'm retarded.
Wave transmitters United States owns and operates 3 of them. One in Gacona, Alaska, another in Fairbanks, Alaska, and one in Arecibo, Puerto Rico. Russia has one in Vasilursky near Nizhny Novgorod, and the European Union has one near Tromsø in Norway.
That's a total of 6.
Working in tandem, these transmitters could potentially alter the weather anywhere in the world, changing the jet stream.
Who would ever think that they would work in tandem? Do you see how they're all in the northern hemisphere?
These transmitters could potentially alter the weather anywhere in the world, changing the jet stream's course entirely. Transmitters could potentially alter. The Union has one near Tromsø in Norway. Working in tandem, these transmitters could potentially alter the weather anywhere in the world, changing the jet stream's course entirely, triggering massive rainstorms or droughts. Even hurricane steering would be possible by heating up the atmosphere and building up high-pressure domes that could deflect or change the course of hurricanes. The U.S. government...
So they could build up enough pressure, enough force in one area, invisible force in one area, because their radar is just sending its beacon over and over again, that a tornado or a hurricane would bump right up against the force and just move along the outer edge until what? Until it's going in the direction that you want.
Is firm in its position that HAARP is just an atmospheric research facility. But is it more than coincidence that since going online, some experts have reported strange weather anomalies, including massive floods, hurricanes, and earthquakes? HAARP went online in 1994, and construction continued until 2007. There are reportedly a total of 5 known ionospheric heaters, including HAARP, in the world today. There are possibly 20 other ionospheric heaters in existence all over the world.
Now, do you still see them? They're still in the northern hemisphere. Uno, you know there's 3 up here, and they're only showing you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what they're showing you. Then they're showing there might be one there, might be one there, might be one there. Right? Let's play rewind that. Let's just look at all the little flashes. When he starts saying there might be 20 different arrays of 72,050 waters.
In the world today. There are possibly 20 other ionospheric heaters in existence all over the world. There's
now, every time they show that, there's not a 1 dot, like little flickering in the southern. Okay? Now, you got this guy. This is the voice of what? Number 2? This little Star Trek Brain Shack, right? So he's literally talking to you about terraforming the Earth. And he just showed you the terraform location of the platforms are in basically the northern hemisphere. I think it's interesting that his body of work is that he went to work to pretend he dealt with aliens all the time. And now he's pretty much showing an alien agenda of terraformation.
Heaters in existence all over the world.
My bad.
There's no conclusive proof that
there was one in South America, in the northern, by Brazil. There was one or 2 there. My bad.
There's no conclusive proof that any of them are being used as weather weapons, though they do have the ability to manipulate the ionosphere. And that brings us to something else. December 2001. Scientists at NASA's Ames Research Center in Palo Alto, California make a discovery. In studying more than 100 earthquakes with magnitudes of 5.0 or greater, they find that almost all of them are preceded by electrical disturbances in the ionosphere. Could there be a connection to HAARP?
So, now, what they're telling you is when HAARP is used and what we call a natural event takes place, there is a fingerprint that's left. It's like a lot of static electricity left on the blanket, right? No, just watch.
Find that almost all of them are preceded by electrical disturbances in the ionosphere. Could there be a
electrical disturbances don't happen with earthquakes naturally. But once everything got going on HAARP, let's listen again.
100 earthquakes with magnitudes of 5 point Alpha California make a discovery. In studying more than 100 earthquakes with magnitudes of 5.0 or greater, they find that almost all of them are preceded by electrical disturbances in the ionosphere. Could there be a connection to HAARP or a facility like it?
To say that HAARP can artificially excite the ionosphere in such a way to cause an earthquake, well, it alarms me.
Dr. Agnew experienced the power of ELF waves firsthand back in the 1980s. He was hired by an energy company to locate oil and gas using the same kind of ELF waves at much lower frequencies to carry out his search. It's a process called earth tomography.
Radar. Alright, well that one ends there. Alright.
What the hell is going on at HAARP? You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. It's a good question. HAARP, you've probably heard of it before. It stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research. It's located in Gakona, Alaska. It was built in 1993. That's when they started working on.
Now, they're only going to tell you about Gakona. They're not even going to talk about Anchorage.
On it, at least. And a lot of this came from the tireless advocacy of a senator called Ted Stevens. Called Ted Stevens because that was his name. I digress. The question about HAARP has always been, what exactly are they doing? And conspiracy theories about this abound. Here's what we know, at least the official version of what and why. What they're doing is they're shooting radio beams up into the ionosphere. Well, what the is the ionosphere? That's a good question. A lot of people don't know that either. The ionosphere is part of the upper atmosphere. There are various layers. There's the troposphere, the stratosphere, and then boom, we've got the ionosphere. It's pretty big, and it's kind of think of it like a shell of electrons and charged atoms or molecules. A lot of it is reacting to the ultraviolet energy sent by the sun. So what we're doing, we being the people at HAARP, in theory, is shooting up radio beams into the ionosphere to see how they could affect radio communication, how they could affect solar flares, or how solar flares might affect terrestrial technology.
Yeah, the spheres are the firmament mentioned in the Bible. These are layers to protect the earth. One layer holds the oxygen in. One layer reduces sunlight. Start to get it? This is why in a book they talk about the window. In one book they consider it Jacob's ladder. In another book they talk about a window. Astronauts blast off, they say we only have this much time to make it to the window.
That's the official version. Now you'll hear some more cynical people who are members of groups that want to stop HAARP say stuff like basically the United States government spent hundreds of millions of dollars to shoot part of the atmosphere and, see what would happen. Just roll the dice, right? The scary thing is that kind of reasoning is believable because governments have funded scientific projects like that in the past. And, maybe one day if you're interested, we can run a list of some of the more ridiculous projects. But the conspiratorial side, if it's true, is much more frightening, and that's the idea that this ionospheric stimulation would be able to produce natural disasters like hurricanes, typhoons, earthquakes, real end-of-the-world type stuff.
or that it could affect people's minds somehow. Now, as you probably already know, skeptics dismiss these claims entirely. And why do they do that? It goes down.
But this same kind of signals in the same frequency range, can affect human mood. The human brain operates on very low frequencies. For example, when we're thinking, actively, we're generating about 13, 14 cycles per second. When we're meditating, we're generating 8 cycles per second. And when we're asleep, the brain waves are running at about 4 cycles per second. And HAARP is capable of generating all of these frequencies. These kinds of signals can control the human brain. And if you can control these frequencies and multiples of these frequencies and various combinations, you can control all kinds of emotions. You can generate happiness. You could generate sadness. You can generate any mood you want.
We are
people's minds somehow. Now, as you probably already know, skeptics dismiss these claims entirely. And why do they do that? It goes down to an argument of scale. The amount of interference that the HAARP station in Alaska is able to enact upon Earth's ionosphere in general is, you might hear it compared to throwing a rock in the Pacific Ocean, or trying to cut down a tree with like a pair of sewing scissors. Are those a thing? Really small scissors. Point being that HAARP itself doesn't seem to have enough energy in order to affect a worldwide system, much less target parts of that system remotely. So
going online, some experts have reported strange weather anomalies, including massive floods, hurricanes, and earthquakes. Changing the jet stream's course entirely. Tandem, these transmitters, Union has one near Tromsø in Norway. Working in tandem, these transmitters could potentially alter the weather
worldwide system, much less target parts of that system remotely. So for the sake of argument, let's in order to affect a worldwide system, much less target parts of that system remotely. So for the sake of argument, let's say that some of this might be true. Well, if we looked at that, our evidence would be the following. One, we know that weather modification already does exist and has existed for a very long time, primarily in the form of cloud seeding, which we have an episode about in our series on weather modification. Second, we know that someone who worked at DARPA did apply for a patent, and they were granted a patent for something that could perhaps affect the weather in the way that some HAARP opponents believe HAARP can. But here's the catch. He never actually built this machine that he got a patent for. It's almost a thought exercise based on calculations that say, well, HAARP is this big, 180 high-powered antennas across 30 acres versus how big it would need to be, or how big something would need to be in order to have a larger world system-wide effect.
Excuse me. I want to get the number again. I just want to make sure it's 72.
States began building its own mysterious array of antennas in February 1992. They are located in Gakona, Alaska. The project is called HAARP.
HAARP is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, originally a joint effort of the Air Force and Navy in cooperation with a number of academic institutions.
It is today the world's largest radio broadcasting station, but it's not designed to broadcast for human ears. It uses unique patented ability to focus the energy coming out of the antenna field and injects that energy into a spot at the very top of the atmosphere in a region called the ionosphere.
HAARP is comprised of 180 antennas, approximately 72 feet tall.
180 antennas, 72 feet tall. My bad. 72 50-watt antennas. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Seriously. So, 183 72-foot antennas.
Comprised of 180 antennas, approximately 72 feet tall, linked together to function as one giant steerable antenna. Steerable because it can aim millions of watts of ELF waves into one tiny patch of the atmosphere.
Alright, so now that we got the correct number.
How big it would need to be, or how big something would need to be in order to have a larger world system-wide effect. And that's not all. There's also a couple of very interesting conversations with high-level world leaders. At the United Nations in 2010, then-President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said that HAARP was directly responsible for floods in Pakistan. That same year, Hugo Chavez also alleged that HAARP was messing with the weather, weaponizing it, and blamed the Haitian earthquake on HAARP. We also know one-time Secretary of Defense William Cohen here in the United States said that terrorists were investigating new methods of attacks, and he named a bunch of stuff, like he named breeding some sort of new form of genetically modified insect that would become a disease vector. He talked about creating natural disaster.
New insect disease vector. It's funny because DARPA was brought up, and DARPA makes these new insects that are robots that they release into the wild. I mean, population. Yeah. Oh, just so you don't think I'm bullshitting here. Always for fun. Always for fun, you guys. You guys. Always for fun. How do you spell mosquito? Yeah, mosquito drone. Thanks, bud. Hey, it's so sweet. Google is DARPA, and if you ask Google about DARPA, he'll just tell you about himself. Ah. Well, Beast, you could have made a sweet pet, but, you know. And if you go in here and you just type in, like, go to all, and then say, like, released. Right? Released. Thank you, Beast. Here's a Scooby snack, Beast. So, you just pick one of these articles and it'll talk to you about like when they plan on releasing them, when they have released them, how the test came back. Here, future of drones in 2012. DARPA developing micro drones designed to sneak into what? I don't even want to open that. It's just gonna. Let's go back. I digressed.
Disasters, weaponizing climate change, a couple of other very strange things that you can read in his interview in full, which is posted online. We'll have a link.
Remember, he said terrorists, right, are investigating. He's talking about a government.
That you can read in his interview in full, which is posted online. We'll have a link to it in the description down here. So, when we ask what the hell is going on at HAARP, on one side,
let me go back further.
In climate change, a couple of other breeding some sort of new form of defense. William Cohen here in the United States said that terrorists were investigating new methods of attacks, and he named a bunch of stuff, like he named breeding some sort of new form of genetically modified insect that would become a disease vector. He talked about creating natural disasters, weaponizing climate change, a couple of other very strange things that you can read in his interview in full, which is posted online. We'll have a link to it in the description down here. So when we ask what the hell is going on at HAARP, on one side we have people saying, well, it's doing, largely abstract research. We're just monitoring things to learn how systems work, which is a great thing to do, right? And on the other side, we have people say, no, it's something nefarious, and that the rise in natural disasters, or the perceived rise in natural disasters, is occurring in some way because of man's intervention via HAARP. And we do know that there's some fairly good evidence that people can make some natural disasters. There's compelling evidence that fracking, for instance, is nudging things. There's some fairly good evidence that people can make some natural disasters. There's there's some fairly good evidence that people can make some natural. Great thing to do, right? And on the other side, we have people say, no, it's something nefarious, and that the rise in natural disasters, or the perceived rise in natural disasters, is occurring in some way because of man's intervention via HAARP. And we do know that
hundreds of people are waking up to utter devastation.
Holy mackerel!
The destruction caused by a deadly tornado outbreak cutting across the South and Midwest.
See debris.
The tornado claiming multiple lives, including a 7-year-old boy, as residents desperately tried to hide in their cars and homes.
And by the time I got out of my car, I had a tree that was in my windshield.
Right here. In northern Mississippi, this tornado tore through a busy highway. Watch as the massive twister tosses this tractor trailer as it barrels through traffic. Watch from this angle, from what appears to be the same semi. This driver just feet away. The winds in southwestern Tennessee roared up to 75 miles per hour as officials declared a state of emergency.
The houses just exploded, and they were buried in the rubble.
2 people were killed east of Memphis, their bodies found under debris.
We were in the house, we heard the wind picking up. We had 45 seconds and it just hit. We walked out of the storm shelter, everything was gone.
And in Arkansas, an 18-year-old woman died when a tree fell through her house, toppled by the high winds and heavy rain.
Oh, it's massive. Oh, it's a big tornado. Big, strong tornado. There it goes. Can you get it? Yep. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Whoa! Oh, it's big. That is big. Oh! There's stuff flying in the air. Get it? Yeah. I got it. Oh, there's people stopping on the highway. Regulation, but it's there. There it is. I see it. Yeah, there you go. More power flashes.
Whoa, I just got a lightning strike.
Overnight in eastern Texas, blinding rain, lightning, and strong winds in the city of Marshall. Down trees and power lines, possibly the work of yet another tornado, touching down in the Lone Star State. Last night, patrons inside a Chili's restaurant huddling inside a freezer as tornado sirens sound off. Our tornado watch still in effect today. This morning, the monster storm system wreaking havoc across the southern states, making its way eastward.
Oh, it's a big tornado. Big, strong tornado.
Over the Christmas weekend, Texas bearing the brunt of the storm, ravaged by nearly half a dozen deadly tornadoes. An airplane passenger snapping this stunning photo of the massive storm system on a flight to Dallas. 2 power function in Rowlett and nearby Garland on Saturday. The death toll, 11, making this the deadliest December for tornadoes in 60 years. Justin Schuler sifts through what remains of his home in Garland. He and his dog survived by taking cover in a bathtub.
I stepped out because I heard the roaring, and that's when I saw it.
Willard Jordan heard the tornado rip through his neighborhood in Dallas. His family and home spared.
Buildings cracking, ripping stuff up, and all we could do was run to the closet and pray.
And this Garland resident rescued by family.
I just stayed in my closet all night long, shaking like a leaf on a tree.
The deadly storm also spawning flash floods, whiteout conditions, and states of emergency in New Mexico and Missouri. In Missouri, more than 100 water rescues. At least 6 people killed in Pulaski County, swept away by floodwaters Saturday night.
It's a small, dark highway. They probably did not know what hit them until they hit the water.
The massive system dumping more than 16 inches of snow in New Mexico.
Did you just hear that? 16 inches of snow in New Mexico?
By floodwaters Saturday night.
It's a small, dark highway. They probably did not know what hit them until they hit the water.
The massive system dumping more than 16 inches of snow in New Mexico.
16 inches? In New Mexico?
Because of man's intervention, perceived rise in natural disasters is occurring in some disasters, or the perceived rise in natural disasters is occurring in some way because of man's intervention via HAARP. Hit the water.
The massive system dumping more than 16 inches of snow in New Mexico. Icy roads backing up traffic and shutting down Interstate 40 in Albuquerque.
Behind us were spinning around at a couple of 100 miles an hour, and I looked up and I put the truck into park, and we could hear again all of this debris spinning around hitting the truck. It was just boom, 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 and the truck was shaking, and we knew at that point that all we could do was get down, and I just kept hollering, get down, stay down, stay down, and the debris shaking the truck back and forth. And it was at that point, literally, I could feel the truck lifting up out of the air, and I thought, I'm gone, I'm dead, and I don't really remember anything, and that's kind of the good news. I think if I could say anything, it's at that point, I don't remember anything. We literally lifted up off the ground, the truck rolled, and God saved us. My Toyota Tundra saved us at that point, and we just rolled and went over into the.
Hey, thank God he said God saved us first. That feels good, man. I gotta hear that again.
Off the ground, the truck rolled, and God saved us. My Toyota Tundra saved us at that point, and we just rolled and went over into the median, and we came up on the side, on the driver's side of the truck. When the truck started lifting up, we totally blacked out, and we came up and we looked at each other and realized that we were both okay. And we had our seatbelts on, and she undid her seatbelt, and climbed out the top, and someone was standing there talking to us. I suspect it probably wasn't long, and we climbed out of the vehicle, and when we came out, there were literally cars that had flown off of the highway and were within feet of us. There was debris everywhere. Literally, a riding lawnmower was just over there. There were parts of the guardrail, 10-foot sections of guardrail that were stabbed just 5-6 feet into the ground. And when I went to the wrecking yard, there was a piece of 2x4, look, something like that, just a big arrow laying in the back seat of the car.
The damage left behind from this weekend's tornado outbreak in North Texas. Now, this is an aerial view from this morning as a chopper flew over the towns where at least 9 tornadoes touched down Saturday night. They killed 11 people and damaged almost 1,500 homes. Now, the hardest hit areas were Copeville, Rowlett, and Garland, just northeast of Dallas. KXAN's Phil Prazen is in Garland, where an EF4 tornado hit.
Imagine waking up to this. Here at the landmark apartments along I-30 in Garland, people had to get out quick. Witnesses say the worst of the storm came and went in about 45 seconds. Now, Governor Abbott declared an emergency in this area because more than $35 million worth of damage has been done. You can see by just walking around, more damage has been done than that. And it's a disaster that many saw coming, but few could do anything to stop it.
At least 9 tornadoes touched down around Lake Ray Hubbard. The Dallas suburbs of Garland and Rowlett were hit the worst.
I cannot believe that this amount of damage was done in probably 30 seconds, but it felt like a lifetime. It did. I'm sorry. I'm a teacher, and we have kids in this neighborhood, and their houses are gone.
Christmas weekend this year turned into a nightmare for many families. Early Monday morning, the count stands at 80 homes destroyed, more than 20 injured, 11 dead, several still missing. Jessica Morgan's family huddled in the bathroom.
We were praying. We were all praying. I was on top of Kimber, covering her. My husband's covering me.
This week they'll begin the slow rebuilding process. Many are thankful their families are safe. At least 11 were torn apart.
And there is much to rebuild here in Garland. Out of those 40 people, more than 40 people that died nationwide in these storms, 11 of them were in these northeast suburbs of Dallas. 8 of them were here in Garland. Reporting live from Garland, Phil Prazen, KXAN News.
And a smaller EF2 tornado killed a 3-day-old baby in Blue Ridge. A woman says she and her neighbor tried to get the little girl to the hospital while the baby's father tried to rescue her mother.
Just kept saying, oh my God, to Jim, the neighbor, please baby, be okay baby. And I was holding her little fingers, you know how when they're little they like to curl their little fingers around you. Her little hand was cold.
And county officials say the girl's parents and 3 other children were taken to the hospital.
And there is more dangerous weather tonight. Blizzard conditions in parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. Let's bring in David Payne, chief meteorologist at our Oklahoma City affiliate KWTV. David, what's happening there?
Well, Jeff, it's been a wild day so far. We've had a lot of ice, a lot of sleet here in Oklahoma, flooding rains in eastern Oklahoma. It's just a big mess around here. I-40 westbound, again, west of Oklahoma City, has been shut down several times today due to just simply too much ice and too much sleet, and we are not through yet. More on the way. Jeff, back to you.
David Payne, thank you very much. Farther west in Roswell, New Mexico, here's Cheyenne Cope of our Albuquerque affiliate KRQE.
I'm standing in probably about 2.5 feet of snow right now. It's all the way up to my knees, and it's causing for some dangerous road conditions. Several roads have been shut down due to dangerous conditions across the area. Police are asking people to play it safe and stay off the road, saying they've never seen snow drifts like this before. The snow started falling yesterday and hasn't stopped. A blizzard warning is in effect across the east central plains. Yesterday, people here in Roswell scrambled to get last-minute essential supplies, clearing store shelves of snow shovels and other goods to tide them over through the storm. In Roswell, New Mexico, Cheyenne Cope, CBS News.
Yeah, see, they don't even get snow to the extent that these people have to go and buy shovels as an emergency thing. You know? So this is Alabama. So in one part of the country, it's tornadoes, 9 tornadoes drop in one night. You know, they've been dealing with flooding as well, snowing in heat stroke New Mexico, right? Flooding in Alabama, flooding just ended in what? Carolinas? North Carolina just stopped flooding, or is it still flooded there?
Flying over the town of Concordia by helicopter on December 27th, Argentine President Mauricio Macri could sense how his people were affected by the worst flood in the past half-century.
China.
Queremos estar juntos en estos momentos difíciles.
Excuse me. The channel is New China, the news thing, sorry, it said Argentina.
Que no están solos. La nación va a participar con el 66% de la inversión necesaria.
I think, we'll go back a little bit. I think this has to do with Brazil. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, because they're looking at levees that, quote unquote, were destroyed and a flood took over this area. Now it's the end of Alabama, and then it switches.
Flying over the town of Concordia by helicopter on December 27th,
Concordia.
Argentine President Mauricio Macri could sense how his people were affected by the worst flood in the past half-century. President Mauricio Macri could sense how his people were affected.
Sorry.
Flying over the town of Concordia by helicopter on December 27th, Argentine President Mauricio Macri could sense how his people were affected by the worst flood in the past half-century.
Argentine?
Queremos estar juntos en estos momentos difíciles. Sepan que no están solos. La nación va a participar con el 66% de la inversión necesaria para construir las viviendas que saquen de esta zona de baja cota a los que hoy están inundados.
Concordia, some 430 kilometers northeast of the capital city of Buenos Aires in the province of Entre Rios, was one of the hardest hit cities in Argentina. Torrential rains have claimed at least 6 lives in different areas, as trees were uprooted and power lines knocked down. Meteorologists attributed the disaster to this year's El Niño phenomenon and warned that it would lead to extreme weathers in other countries of Latin America.
hacer algo, porque no puede ser que en este momento haya en Concordia la gente que hay en escuelas. Tampoco hay capacidad, tampoco hay comida, no hay nada.
Extreme temperatures forced our trains to slow down, delaying services by up to 15 minutes. The mercury soared above 41 degrees, triggering immediate speed restrictions.
As Perth sweltered, delays for commuters. Trains slowing in case scorching tracks buckled. 41.6 degrees, our second hottest day of the year. How hot is it today?
Really hot.
The heat was on early, quickly climbing to 31 degrees by 8 a.m. By lunchtime, past 40, hitting our maximum at 16 past 1 this afternoon.
We had a very hot air mass over Perth. We got a trough that deepened next to the west coast. The outlook is still for a warm summer, so January could still be warmer than what it has been. So we do still expect it to be hot.
The river a lifesaver as families tried to beat the heat. Big crowds also cooled off at the beach.
We are swimming and we are jumping over the waves and getting dunked.
It's going to be a stinking hot day, so this is the best place to be in the world.
It's not too bad, mate. I used to live in Darwin, so I find it pretty nice.
The hottest place in Perth was here at Pearce. It got to 43 degrees just before 2 o'clock. This map shows today's global temperatures, WA glowing in red. And there's no relief tomorrow, another scorcher, 37 degrees.
Dealing with an incredibly serious situation. What has happened, the level of the rivers plus the level of rainfall has created an unprecedented effect, and so some very serious flooding. The Cobra call.
So this is England.
We've decided to deploy more military resources, more military personnel to help. But let me say, the emergency services have done a fantastic job and continue to do so, and they deserve the whole nation's thanks. But of course, at this time of year particularly, we all feel huge sympathy with those who've been flooded and have had to leave their homes. We do seem to face more of these extreme weather events and problems of floods. People are told that things that are 1 in 50 or 1 in 100 or 1 in 200 years, they seem to be happening more often. So what we should be doing is continuing with a very high level of investment in flood defences, more spent in this Parliament than the last Parliament, and the last Parliament more than the one before that. But whenever these things happen, you should
snort, man. This dude's out kayaking.
Problems of floods. People are told that things that are 1 in 50 or 1 in 100 or 1 in 200 years, they seem to be happening more often. So what we should be doing is continuing with a very high level of investment in flood defences, more spent in this Parliament than the last Parliament, and in the last Parliament more than the one before that. But whenever these things happen, you should look at what you've spent, look at what you've built, look at what you're planning to spend, look at what you're planning to build, and ask whether it's in the right places, whether it's enough, whether we're doing everything we can to try and help.
This is York, United Kingdom. Now, if you can't see where the trees are rooted in the ground, then it's all flooded. Yeah, that's annoying. Sorry. Alright, so let's pause that for a second. And we're gonna go back here again. We're gonna go back just a little bit. And we're gonna play.
The rise in natural disasters, or the perceived rise in natural disasters, is occurring in some way because of man's intervention via HAARP.
So let's just go a little bit further with this one. So now you see they have a bunch of water. Okay, now you can see they do not have the opportunity to get in their cars and drive south. This is the point of telling you to leave before something bad happens. I know, yes, in northern Texas these things are happening, and this is happening. And in other areas, these things are happening. But where's your faith in the Creator? Beginning of this video, it just everybody says we started praying. Has
led officials to evacuate tens of thousands of residents and claim the lives of at least 6 people. The downpours were sparked by the El Nino weather phenomenon and have affected mostly Paraguay. 130,000 people there have been relocated to shelters, and President Horacio Cortes has declared a state of emergency. Brazil's President Dilma Rousseff has announced $1.8 million in emergency aid for flood-ravaged communities in southern Brazil. It's where some 8,000 people have been displaced by rising waters, and in Argentina, nearly 20,000 people have been driven from their homes, and at least one person has died in a flood-related incident. The Argentine Ministry of Defense said the military was helping to distribute food rations to communities isolated by the flood.
This is really bad. This is where I used to live, and it's gone. It could have been worse. We could have been planning a funeral instead. The pictures of my mom, she passed away in 2010, and I would look at it every night before I go to bed and just say good night, and wish I could find that picture too.
Manchester River or something. River Irving or something. Oh, yeah. Have a moment. Get out that music, man.
Only from the sky that you can appreciate the expanse of ground covered by these floods, and it's from the air that help finally arrived today. An RAF Chinook was flown in to bring machinery to help repair a flood barrier.
Did they just say Chinook? Remember, the military, okay, they name these machines after the peoples that they've either made deals with or that they've overthrown. We have the Tomahawk, the Apache. These are chopper names for the Americans. Look, this is an English chopper. Now the Chinook Indians are here in what? Northwest United States. This is an English chopper. Now what do they call it?
It's only from the sky that you can appreciate the expanse of ground covered by these floods, and it's from the air that help finally arrived today. An RAF Chinook was flown in to bring machinery to help repair a flood barrier.
Now there you go. RAF Chinook, right? RAF. Now, correct my spelling. Spell it with a C. See? RAF Chinook. Like the Chinook Indians. See how it's all connected? Like, come on. If I take RAF out, it's back to the Chinook Indians that only I'm teaching you about. Children of Cain. Chinook Indian Nation, look, Chinook dog. It's a rare breed of sled dog. Chinook chopper. Where did the Chinook tribe live? Come on. It's all connected.
Barrier.
RAF helicopter saved us.
It's only from the sky that you can appreciate the expanse of ground.
There's a flood all over this giant city, and only from the sky can you appreciate what? The fucking devastation, the destruction, the problems, the expense that just grew. Come on. Fucking eliminated.
Ground covered by these floods, and it's from the air that help finally arrived today. An RAF Chinook was flown in to bring machinery to help repair a flood barrier.
You and me, we saw it is spelled RAF Chinook. Now they pronounce it Chinook, right? Now, again, the Shin are the Chinese, right? No, the children of Cain aren't the Chinook, but it's damn near the same people group.
Help finally arrived today. An RAF Chinook was flown in to bring machinery to help repair a flood barrier.
The only way to bring this equipment in is by air, because all along this stretch of the River Foss, the roads are extensively cut off.
It's out of sync. She's got some big chops too.
Stretch of the River Foss.
It's still out of sync. It's funny.
Roads are extensively cut off.
The Foss flood barrier failed here on Boxing Day after water got into its pump room. The Environment Agency says it chose to leave the gate open, as keeping it closed would have caused even more properties to flood. The airlift brought new equipment to get the defences working again, with the aim of pumping water away from the River Foss, which hasn't flooded.
That means if they left the floodgate opened because more homes would be damaged, they leave the floodgates open to flood out the lower levels. Alright? That's the same thing that they did in the 9th Ward, right? Let's leave the gates open so we flood out the 9th Ward, or else the flood will reach to the rich areas. So who lives in this area that they left the gates open for?
Would have caused even more property.
One expensive home versus 10 cheap homes. You don't build an expensive home down on the lowest level because of flooding. You build expensive homes up on hills to avoid flooding.
The false flood barrier failed here on Boxing Day after water got into its pump room. The Environment Agency says it chose to leave the gate open, as keeping it closed would have caused even more properties to flood. The airlift brought new equipment to get the defences working again, with the aim of pumping water away from the River Foss, which hasn't flooded here since the 1980s.
See that wall? Here, I'm gonna explain this to you real quick. Because, okay, here's the wall. Here's the gate right there. If they close the gate, then the water goes up. On the other side, the water goes up, and it starts pouring off into the rich area. Now, if they let the gate open, all the people that have homes on this level. Now, this is a high street. Look how high that is. Alright? That's a 10-foot difference. Now, people that have homes on this road, all the way up here, that they're standing on, is probably about right there, are unaffected by the flood because the gate was left open to keep the flood at least that high. Now, when you're talking about 40 square miles, that means a lot.
New equipment to get the defences working again, with the aim of pumping water away from the River Foss, which hasn't flooded here since the 1980s. With such widespread flooding has come a massive emergency response involving soldiers and rescue teams from across the UK. Meeting some of them, the Prime Minister defended his government's spending on flood protection.
Here in Yorkshire, for instance, we've spent £100 million on flood defences since I became Prime Minister. We're planning to spend another 280 million, so almost 3 times as much. But, that's of no comfort, obviously, to the people who've been flooded here in York. And, all our hearts go out to them. To be flooded is a terrible experience anyway, and it's even more terrible when it happens at Christmas or New Year.
As David Cameron spoke to one team in the city centre, he was heckled by a woman. It wasn't clear if she was attacking government policy in general or a lack of investment in defending York against flooding. Meanwhile, out in the city centre...
Now, how could that be? How could there be a lack of defending York against situations like this when he just told you that they just used all this money before this for this? Well, I know it's out of sync, but listen again.
Prime Minister. We're planning to spend another 280 million, so almost 3 times as much. But,
Prime Minister defended his government's spending on flood protection.
Here in Yorkshire, for instance, we've spent £100 million on flood defences since I became Prime Minister. We're planning to spend another 280 million, so almost 3 times as much. But, that's of no comfort, obviously.
They're fucking spending millions on sand? Shut the fuck up, dude.
To the people who've been flooded here in York, and all our hearts go out to them. To be flooded is a terrible experience anyway, and it's even more terrible when it happens at Christmas or New Year.
At Christmas or New Year.
As David Cameron's
what's at the end of this?
To get absolutely everyone to dry land.
Alright, I'm gonna stop it. I don't want to hear that fucking song again. It's just weird. Alright. So, hello, how are you? I hope you're watching. I hope you're watching in your home. I hope your home's not destroyed. Odd thing is, I have a feeling that most people that watch aren't experiencing this. I just have that feeling. I've been talking to you for some time about leaving. You can see what's going on. From a quarterback perspective, I mean, an armchair quarterback perspective, it seems as if there's an unusual amount of weather damage from, I would say I've started seeing it myself from October, just watching just these news channels. This Angel of the Apocalypse has this news channel, and watching these since October, it's shown a lot of devastation. So many different volcanoes erupting. I know, and it's funny because it matches scripture. You know, all these things would happen, and it would seem like it's happening in one night. You know, and you know, it's interesting. You know, you should think about your faith. The loudest thing broadcast in those things was holy mackerel. One of the funnier things that was broadcast was God saved me. My Toyota Tacoma saved me, or Tundra saved me. But at least he said God saved me first. I don't hear people crying for Jesus. I see people trying to strengthen the theory of Jesus. This God that we always call on. When you sneeze, nobody says, "Oh, may Jesus bless you." They say, "God bless you." This theory that Jesus is our Savior is very dangerous. We live in these Christian communities that have lied to us all along. These are Christian nations that hold these heart machines, that practice our future through weather. Whether we believe it or not, there's too much evidence that shows it's real.